expectations in check. And again, this goes back to my experience and what it's worth on that first Camino. Yeah, don't try to make too much of it, and just be as open as you can. Maybe you can expect the unexpected. Maybe you should hope and pray for the unexpected, because the unexpected sometimes opens up our eyes to the things that we wouldn't otherwise see, things that maybe we need to see. So sometimes we don't get the answers. And sometimes maybe it's because we're asking the wrong questions, okay? And sometimes it's just because the answer has got to be something that bubbles up from us and takes a very long time. And what might be an answer one day is not the answer for the long term. I don't think it's about practicing law or being a professor or being a minister. I think it's about everything and anything that we do, whether we're bus drivers or whatever, compared to the Camino. The Camino for me is an opportunity to get away from all of the things that we do, whether we're doing it for money as professionals or whatever. It gives us a break to get away from all of that busyness and all of those obligations.
Welcome, pilgrims, to the Way to Your Why podcast. Today's conversation is about the Camino we don't expect, the one that doesn't go according to the plan, but ends up changing everything. Our first Camino was far from perfect, yet it became the beginning of many more journeys and deeper calling to serve pilgrim community. From navigating uncertainty as an attorney used to structure and control, to becoming an hospitalero, a leader with the American Pilgrims on the Camino. This is a story about how the Camino gives us not what we want, but what we truly need. If you ever felt like things are not going your way, this conversation might just change how you see your own path. Welcome, John. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's good to be with you here.
Okay, thank you for participating here. So the first question we just discussed, how was that your first experience at the Camino? Because you mentioned to me that a lot of things went wrong. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, what I'm going to say is that it was not things that went wrong with the Camino. What went wrong was with me in terms of how I approached the Camino, what I expected, what I wanted for sure, what I thought I could get, and how I went about trying to do that. So if you've got room for a little bit of context and backstory, I was serving. You mentioned being an attorney. Well, yes, many years ago I was an attorney and also a law professor. But when I walked the first Camino, I was a minister, a minister of the Unitarian congregation over in Raleigh. And that was a tough job.
Okay.
Being a minister anywhere is a tough job. But I was working 60-hour weeks, and I'd been doing this work for a while and had a little bit of a sabbatical coming. And of course, a lot of times when you go on sabbatical, you go off and you do research, or you learn how to write sermons better, or whatever it may be. But what I really needed then was a chance to kind of recharge my spiritual batteries, for lack of a better word. And I really needed that. But then I was also conscious of, well, I'm taking time away from doing this work here, so I'd better make sure that I get my bang for the buck in terms of the time away, and that the congregation sees that. And so the short story is I was far too intentional about, and this has been true for me all of my 70-something years now. This was not anything new. Just too much of a planner. I'm still a planner, but I think I've learned how to hold my plans more lightly, and to not try to force life or force the Camino into my vision of what it should be. Should can be a very dangerous word, period, and dangerous too for Camino pilgrims in terms of the experience. So the short story is that I was just far too intentional about thinking, well, here is the way that I can do this and do it right.
Okay.
There's not a right way to do the Camino for anyone. and the way that you think it's going to be right for you may not be so. So
Yeah,
I'll stop there in terms of that first Camino, but despite that, it was a great experience. And although I came back thinking it's one and done, I came back, I sold my backpack, I sold my sleeping bag, I gave away my hiking sticks. I said, okay, I've done that. Maybe it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I've done that, and I think I've brought back some good enough things. But I've got more work to do now, and that was true until another time walking here. I came to I think revelation is not too big a word, um, that the work I had done there had been good work, and the congregation had been good work, but it was time for me to step away from that so that someone else could come and take the work forward. And I think that many Camino pilgrims find, like me, that sometimes walking, actually there's a Latin phrase, salvator ambulato, I believe, but it's basically walking solves the problem.
okay.
When I'm walking, some of my best thoughts, my best ideas, my best insights come as I'm walking, and not trying to solve a problem, but just coming because I'm walking.
Totally agree with you. So when you walk, it's like you are in another world, and then things that you sometimes see that are very difficult when you are walking because you have time to think more. You see, oh, this was so easy to resolve it.
Yeah. When I was much younger, I was a runner, and I would find that when I was running, and other runners would say, you just kind of get into the zone, and that's both a physical zone in terms of you're just doing what you're doing, you're walking, and it's just so natural, and it's a part your body's doing it, but it's also a part of being in the zone here where, for me anyway, and I think my experience isn't different from others. Your mind opens and your mind clears, um, and in that openness, if it's truly open, you've opened yourself to things that are perhaps deep inside of you, or you might even say open to things that are outside of you, but much larger than you. Um, Coming from other people, coming from the universe, coming from God, whatever word you want to put on it is fine. But there's an openness that comes when you get into that zone, regardless of where it is, whether it's from listening to music or running or walking or whatever. That and that's a great thing to be able to experience in life.
Correct. And you just mentioned that you were a runner. So
Yeah.
when you did that first Camino, and since your experience as a runner, what would you say that are those main difference between being a runner and walking the Camino?
Ha! Speed. I like to say that one of the advantages of walking the Camino, not hiking the Camino, not even doing the Camino, certainly not running the Camino, because it is not a race. And that's one thing I had to be telling myself. And I saw a lot of pilgrims, not just American pilgrims, but pilgrims from all over that, you know, I mean, I'm a fast walker, but it's not about being fast. It's about being slow. It's about slowing down. Again, a phrase I've heard is that when you're truly walking and walking in the moment, in each fraction of the moment. You've basically slowed down to what some people have called the pace of God, which means you've slowed down enough that you can really feel what you need to feel in the moment, see what you need to see in the moment, hear what you need to feel and hear in the moment. And yeah, so I think it's about and the other thing that I think is true about that is that it's not about being fast to get somewhere. It's not about getting somewhere at all. For me, it's about being where you are on the path to somewhere and just being in the moment on that journey. Because I've said, and I believe it's true, the Camino, for me for sure, is not about getting to Santiago or anywhere else. The Camino experience for me is the journey between wherever you are and wherever you may be going. And the destination that we're really going is not always the destination where we stop walking.
Yeah, and the Camino is also like a transformation for a lot of people that when they're going there and they're going to find they're going to do their own journey, but they're looking for like an answer always.
Yeah.
And when you do it, and then so it's like you return back. A lot of people that say the Camino started when you return back home.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So what would you say
Yeah.
about that?
First of all, I think that one of the things that the Camino does is it does attract people who are at some point in their life, whether it's a fork in the road or they think they've reached a dead end or they've been struggling with all sorts of problems, whether they're spiritual, emotional, physical, whatever, and they're looking for an answer. I think that can be a dangerous thing because, at least in my experience, sometimes the living in the questions and being comfortable with the questions rather than looking for the answer is a healthier way to approach the Camino and to approach life. Because anyway, and I'll just say because that's my experience. When I'm looking for an answer, I tend to want to push things into the box that I think the answer could be. And again, that kind of goes back to that first Camino. I was trying to make it fit into this preconceived box that I had thought it should be. And I know there are folks. I know this from my hospitalero experience for sure, from my own experience, that there are people who come onto the Camino and leave the Camino without getting an answer. And if it's okay, and I put it into a little bit larger, even religious sort of experience, when people pray to God, they are often wanting God to answer. And it's not just my experience, but even Mother Teresa said she went for decades without hearing God's answer. So sometimes we don't get the answers. And sometimes maybe it's because we're asking the wrong questions. Okay. And sometimes it's just because the answer has got to be something that bubbles up from us and takes a very long time. And what might be an answer one day is not the answer for the long term. So it's about it gets back to that openness and that letting go of expectations or living in uncertainty. And I think the Camino is a great laboratory for living with uncertainty and living in the moment and letting go of expectations if we're willing to let the Camino affect us that way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And God is always listening. What happens is that, like you just mentioned, the response is not going to be when you are expecting that necessarily, but always is going to come a response at the right moment.
Yeah, I guess what you have to do is you have to be ready to accept that the response may not be coming from where you thought or wanted it to come from, and to realize that something that you think isn't big enough or important enough to be a response can be a response. And I think that's where the experience of other people on the Camino comes from. Now, I'll say I always go to the Camino as a solitary pilgrim. And
Okay.
I go there for the opportunity to be alone with myself and to have time inside of myself. Uh, but the experience of meeting and listening to and walking with and sharing with other pilgrims, other people on the Camino is, I think, just about at the top of the list in terms of what the Camino really offers uh, us. And again, sometimes the answers, if you're looking for answers, the response that you're looking for, it's probably not going to come with the sky parting and the
Yeah.
lights shining down
No
and
fireworks.
here's the answer. And I want sometimes it's going to come in quiet and unexpected ways from unexpected people, and just have to again let go of the preconception of how your question might be answered, and a lot of times it's from what other people say in ways that just somehow magically, mysteriously connect with you and what you're longing for, what you're wanting, and you just got to be open to
Correct.
life and
And
the
then,
Camino connecting with you in ways that you didn't think it was going to.
absolutely. And then, so that first Camino, and then it took some years to you start walking again the Camino. How long was that?
Well, I got back, and it was probably a year or two after that again I had this kind of revelation that it was time to move on from that congregation and do my ministry in some other way. So probably from around the time that I had that revelation, I said, well, depending on which way I figure I might be going, maybe I should go back and give the Camino another try. And so as soon as I was able to do that, part of it was waiting for the birth of a grandchild. I got back 3 years later in 2018, and since then I've walked every year since 2018, except for 1 year during COVID. And I'll have to say that maybe I'm a slow learner, but it's taken many, many journeys on the Camino for me to begin to think that it's close to being the experience that I was probably really longing for way back in 2015 when I first walked. But I think again, I hate to use that word being right, but I think I'm close to maybe getting it right for me in terms of just how I feel when I'm there and how I feel when I get back and yeah. So
Yeah. For Pilgrim, for the people that have no experience this, when you go to the Camino, I don't know, but for me, my description is like it's something out of the world. And when you experience seeing people around, the happiness that you see around is something that is you don't see so often when on your daily life, your daily routines. And then that's why when you return back, you try to convince others to go to the Camino as well?
I don't try to convince anyone. What
Okay.
I do is I share my joy and also not just joy, but everything I feel about the Camino with them, and I say it can be, because it can be a wonderful experience for I think anyone that undertakes that journey. Yeah. And it's not just about the joy of others on the Camino either. Some of the most touching moments I've had on the Camino have come when people have opened up the sadness and the pain that they are carrying with them. And again, I've seen that particularly in my experience as a hospitalero, but even just as a walking pilgrim. Just recently, last month and this month, when I was walking in Portugal, and again, the Camino has a way of I think opening all of us up, and I'm glad that most of the pilgrims that I've encountered have been willing to open themselves up so freely, and to share not only the wonderful things, not only the questions, the struggles, the sadness, everything that they bring in along with them on the Camino.
Okay. Then you join when you join American Pilgrims on the Camino.
I guess it would have been sometime in 2027 or not 2027. That hasn't come yet, has it?
Yeah, yeah. We're in the future yet.
I guess it was sometime in 2017 or 2018. So I
Okay.
walked first in 2015, and I was in transition in terms of my ministry in 2017, which is probably when I first started getting involved in activities with the Raleigh chapter of American Pilgrims. And then I think in 2018 it was one of their chapter coordinators
Okay.
was stepping down, maybe one or two of them, and we were on a hike. And I just mentioned to one of the other coordinators, "Well, I'm got some more time in my life now, and really enjoyed." Uh, uh, Even though it wasn't the greatest Camino ever, my first Camino experience, and I'm planning on going back, I'd be willing to help out with these activities with the
Okay.
chapter that I like, the meetings and the coffee gatherings and the hikes and stuff. I can lead a hike. I'd be glad to do that. And then it was a slippery slope. I
Okay.
was a chapter coordinator for oh gosh, at least 7 or 8 years, and then was involved with the national organization as what we call a chapter coach, helping other chapters,
Yeah.
and then eventually winding up on the board of American Pilgrims. So
Okay. And then, do you know, since you're in the board of American Pilgrim, how many people are volunteering in American Pilgrim the Camino? Do you know?
oh well, my God, so many hundreds of people. It's essentially an all volunteer organization.
Okay.
There is nobody that is paid as an employee to run American Pilgrims. No executive director, no anything like that. The board are all volunteers. The people who put together La Concha, which is the quarterly, I guess, magazine for American Pilgrims, are all volunteers. The people who take care of everything from the food and drink at the national gatherings. You and I saw each other just recently down in
Mhm.
Texas at one of the annual gatherings. All of those activities, the raffle, the auction, the entertainment, it's all volunteer, and that's true at the local level as well. The people who organize all of the chapter activities are volunteers. The people who um, deal with the Camino associations primarily in Spain, and that organize our activities with them, and that review the grants that American Pilgrims make to albergues and other associations in Spain to support the infrastructure of the Camino. All of that, every single thing is volunteer. And we contract out some, you know, sending out credentials or doing the some of the accounting work, but basically the work of American Pilgrims is all volunteer. And it's one of the things that the organization is very proud of. It's a volunteer organization.
Yeah. You are doing an amazing job. And I don't know if you are the largest pilgrims association in the world, but you
No,
are
no.
close to it. You are close to it.
Yeah, I think I've heard that the Dutch have got the largest in terms of membership, and
Okay.
of course I think there's something like 3,000 or 4,000 official American Pilgrims members, but there are tens of thousands of people who have some connection with American Pilgrims, either at the national or at the local level, who are, I think, we don't call them members, but they are just as clearly that. And the thing that I think is really interesting, and I wish I could get an answer from some source about this, is that there are so many other American pilgrims, that is, people from America, from the United States, who walk the Camino that never ever connect with American pilgrims at all. They go without knowing about American pilgrims. They walk without knowing about American pilgrims. They come back without knowing American pilgrims. And I certainly am not saying that everybody ought to be a member of American Pilgrims. It's not like that. But again, being a part of a larger group of people who have shared the same experience is one way that you can keep the Camino alive in your life, and to pass on your experience of the Camino to other people so that they have the opportunity to experience not exactly the same thing that you did, but the experience that we want every pilgrim to have in their own unique way. And connecting with American Pilgrims is one way of not just giving back, but paying it forward and keeping it alive for you. So I would love to see, you know, because I think right now there are about 50,000 Americans. I think that's right, and if it's not right, it doesn't matter. Um, that walk the Camino, and maybe even get a Compostela in Santiago every year. Americans are now the second largest national group that walk the Camino, second only to Spain, and of course a long way behind Spain. But we're, and of that 50,000 or so that are walking every year, Americans, a fraction of them, maybe a tenth. I don't know. You connect with American Pilgrims, and again, I don't want or to say everybody should be, but I think that more. It would be a wonderful thing if more Americans who walk the Camino would find that they can keep the Camino experience alive in their own life, and instill it in others by connecting in some way with American Pilgrims as a national volunteer, by doing hospitalero training, by connecting with their chapter, and just hanging out and being with other pilgrims in their area back home.
Correct. And then you're doing a great job at a local level, and also when you do a national level, for example, with the gathering we just were there, that's an amazing place to be in.
Yeah,
That you are, we were about 300 something people, and
yeah,
you see the joy of everyone, so the happiness, how they are doing, how they're sharing. We have a second breakfast this time.
yeah,
We have a mariachi that they sing
yeah,
on the opening. Then they have a merry band that they also
yeah,
play on some of the conferences. And then so it's a lot that you are doing. And that part of the grants that you mentioned, that's great. That's fantastic that you are helping some albergues to have an opportunity to do their remodelations or fixing problems that they have.
yeah, yeah. It's an organization that does really good work, and it only does that because of all of the, like I say, it must be hundreds of people who volunteer, and the tens of thousands who are a part of the organization, and bring their own creativity, their ideas, their stories, Yeah, amazing. And
Okay, and being you involved and American Pilgrims, what would you say? Why the Camino de Santiago is being walked for so many pilgrims and for so long, for so many years? We're talking about close to 1,000 years, while other pilgrimages are not walking in that amount of people. So, what would you say that's the reason for?
gosh, I must say I really don't know. I think that as far as Americans being on the Camino as opposed to other pilgrimage routes, it goes back to the influence of the movie that Martin Sheen starred in. What was that, 2010 or 2012? I can't remember exactly when. The Way.
Okay.
Um, that kind of broke into American culture. I think that probably in a less quantifiable way, it's because um, they say Rolling Stones gather no moss, but actually Rolling Stones gather moss. And when you get something rolling, it's more like a snowball that gets bigger when it starts rolling. As you get more Americans not only on the Camino, but coming back and telling their friends and their neighbors and the folks in their church or where they work about the Camino, that kind of very subtle word of mouth sharing of stories and experiences, it builds on itself. And, you don't really see that in any big, obvious way, but I think that that's happening as well. And then you have to give a lot of credit to the Spanish people and the Spanish governments as well for doing the things that they've done to. Um, I don't think I want to use the word market at all, but to build an infrastructure that allows people, not only folks in Spain, but from all around the world, to come there and have uh, the experience of walking as a pilgrim on this route. And there are certainly other pilgrimage routes, and actually a lot of American pilgrims travel some of them. St. Olaf's Way in Sweden and in Norway. The I always butcher the name, so you'll have to edit this to make it right. But Francigena, that actually goes from England all the way down through France and Switzerland into Italy to Rome. The St. Francis Way. There are pilgrimage routes in England. Um, and even things here in America with there's a pilgrimage route in Wisconsin. There's the San Antonio Missions Trail. There's the Camino Real in California, the Missions Trail there. There are civil rights pilgrimages in the South. And those are all really meaningful and deep. And again, I don't think there's anything about the Camino itself. It's about the experience of, again, I say any place that you walk um, can be your Camino.
Correct.
It's not about the place. It's not about the destination. It's about the experience. And it's just that the Camino has been put together as a place that makes it possible and supports folks that are looking for that kind of pilgrimage experience.
Okay. And then for when you were practicing as an attorney, for how long you practice?
Maybe for too long. I was an attorney. Um, I, Actually, I retired from being an attorney in 1992, so that's a long time ago. Then I taught law for almost 20 years. I have been, I don't want to say I've been as far away from law as possible, but since 20, focus has been as a minister and doing social justice work. Yeah.
Okay. So then, what would you say? Because everything is a camino, if we put it that way.
Yeah.
The life is a camino. And so when you were practicing as an attorney and also as a professor and also as a minister, let's say the three of them. So how would you compare that with the camino?
I don't think it's about practicing law or being a professor or being a minister. I think it's about everything and anything that we do, whether we're bus drivers or whatever, compared to the Camino. The Camino for me is an opportunity to get away from all of the things that we do, whether we're doing it for money as professionals or whatever. It gives us a break to get away from all of that busyness and all of those obligations, and find something that is much more simple and much more true and much more about being rather than doing. And that actual break is only what, for the week or the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks that we're walking the Camino. But if we walk the Camino um, as in an open way, if we listen to the Camino, if we learn from the Camino, then we can find the simplicity and the peace, the calm, the lack of busyness, even when we come back here and we're having, from 9 to 5 or whatever it may be to be involved here. And it makes a difference, I think, even in the way that we do whatever work it is, whether it's the work of being a parent, whether it's the work of just taking care of our garden, whether it's the work we do for money. It has a way of making that doing a much more deep, authentic, and even spiritual experience. So it's about getting away from all of those things and letting ourselves get away from all of those things so that we can experience this, and then finding ways that we can bring some piece of it back into the work that we do. But yeah.
Absolutely right. And then, so we are approaching to the end of the conversation today. And what advice would you tell to someone that is considering to walk the Camino?
Um, don't do it. Don't do it solo. And by that, I mean, I'm not talking about don't go by yourself, but don't think that you've got to be, you're the only one that can plan and prepare for your Camino. That you've got to do all of the research in the world to, check every website and every app and learn everything that there is to know about it. Find other folks that you can connect with who have walked on the Camino. Ask your questions for sure, but listen to the stories that they have to share. Listen, ask them not just about what kind of backpack do I need, or this, that, the other. Where should I stay? How can I deal with not speaking Spanish? Ask them about the feeling side of the Camino. Keep your expectations in check. And again, this goes back to my experience, and for what it's worth, on that first Camino. Don't try to make too much of it, and just be as open as you can. Maybe you can expect the unexpected. Maybe you should hope and pray for the unexpected, because the unexpected sometimes opens up our eyes to things that we wouldn't otherwise see, things that maybe we need to see. So I suppose that's it. Be open. Stay loose. Don't try to put everything into a neat little package tied up with string and bows. It's going to be what it's going to be, and if you let it be what it's going to be, then I think chances are it'll be a really good experience for you.
So, and then the other thing that I would add is that just live the moment while you're there.
Yeah, and you've probably seen or from the gathering experiences or with the chapter here in Raleigh. American Pilgrims created something, I don't know how many years ago it was, called the Spirit of the Camino, and on the pilgrim passport, the credencial that American Pilgrims gives pilgrims to go to Spain to show that they are pilgrims as they walk there. The spirit of the Camino, I think, is just wonderful, and again, not just for the Camino itself, but in life. And what is it? Live in the moment. First thing.
Correct.
Welcome each day its pleasures and its challenges. Make others feel welcome. Share. Feel the spirit of those who have gone before you. Imagine those who will come after you, and appreciate those who walk with you today. I think that is a beautiful way of summing up what a pilgrim should strive for in terms of the Camino experience. If you keep that in the front of your mind, if you keep that in your heart, if you try to live that out as you walk the Camino and as you come back and you walk the Camino of life, that's pretty good. And I will say, even on that first Camino, there was a time walking, just after Villafranca del Bierzo, as you start to go up toward Osobrero, walking early in the morning along a river there, looking up at the Milky Way above, and in the dark, I could just about feel not just the Camino pilgrims who would have walked that way 800 years ago, but the Celts in that part of Spain who would have been walking to Finisterre following the Milky Way 10,000 years ago. There was a palpable feeling of being part of something larger than yourself. Those who have gone before you and those who will come after you. And a reminder always that the most important thing is to be in the moment, to feel that moment, to appreciate those who are with you in the moment. So I guess, so going back to what would you tell people? I don't know that I'd tell them to memorize that, and I would try to do whatever I could to get them to see that is the real spirit of the journey on which they're embarking.
Okay. Well, John, thank you very much for being here today and participate and then share your thoughts about your experiences about the Camino. And thank you to you, Pilgrim, for watching us. And please keep adding your comments to the comment sections and tell us what other topics would you like to see in the future. Thank you, and buen camino, everybody.
Okay, thanks for having me here.